Okay, we got motherwort here in the woods. Not usually where you find motherwort, but motherwort does grow everywhere as long as it can get a little sunshine. Grows better in the sun. And motherwort is a member of the mint family. It's got a nice square stem. If you put your fingers around it, it doesn't just roll, it kind of flips. And though this is this can still be harvested, but I would go with the smaller, more substantial leaves down below as opposed to these ones here, which are kind of spent already. But motherwort has the distinct whorl of their flowers, and then they turn to seed pods down below. That's very typical of the mint family. Motherwort is makes an excellent relaxing tea. That's what I usually recommend it for. What it's been used for a very long time, though, is to tone the womb and to help women who are getting ready to get pregnant, to help get them ready, their body physically ready, as well as keep their anxiety level down. Mildly helps to reduce anxiety. There are, of course, better ones than that, but motherwort's a good one for that, and just to help you relax at the end of a long day. Mint, because it's a member of the mint family, it also helps to make your stomach feel less upset. So if you have like an upset stomach and you're kind of tense because of it, motherwort probably is one of your better plants that you can take. But this is an old stalk here, and you'll find motherwort all year long on south-facing hills, even in the middle of wintertime. Anytime that the snow kind of blows away from the motherwort, you'll find it. Usually not in woods, not in the woodlots, but we do have our woodlots here. But obviously this one said, I'm going to be a rebel and be in the woods. Forests have a progression. Basically they start usually as like damaged ground, usually through forest fires or tornadoes or something like that naturally, or where we clear cut it, or we let a farm field go fallow for a long period of time as a man-made way of the land being disturbed. Then the land will start by sending up grasses, certain trees such as sumac trees will start coming up. Then you'll go to trees like the poplar tree or the aspen tree, which are considered to be pioneer trees. They come in, and then we progress through the cherries and then through the oaks. And this leaning tree here is an oak. We've got another tree over here, and this is an oak here. And then eventually we get to this tree here, and this is a sugar maple. And sugar maples are what are called a climax forest. Once you get mature sugar maples, which this one here is almost to maturity, that's it. That nothing else can grow until a disturbance comes through. Sugar maples are a strong tree. They will put out, you can see how they kind of grow straight up, and then they branch out at the top, so they shade the bottom underneath them. They also exclude a little bit, they give off a little bit of an acid, so a lot of plants can't grow up underneath them. And you can always tell when maples start taking over a forest because you can see how clean and clear it is. You don't have much of an undergrowth. That's what's called a climax forest. And while these are not quite to mature, they're coming up very much to mature, and we always like to think of the oak tree as being the mighty tree. Well, here in North America, it is the maple. The maple is the one that will kill off the oaks. Eventually, these oaks will start dying off. In fact, if you see up here, you see one that's leaning. That one has already been killed off by the maples, until finally there is nothing but maples here. Until, again, like I said, tornado comes through. There's Puck Puck right in there. Tornado comes through, fire comes through, something. Nature hates static. It hates status quo. So eventually nature will come in here and level the playing field, and it will start all over. Nature is always changing, it's always growing, it's always being. That's what being alive is. Being alive means death and destruction as well as joy and goodness. So we're coming up here on a climax forest as our maples, which are these nice straight trees that grow up like that. Here's another one right in front of me. A straight tree goes straight up. Once those get to maturity, just nothing else is going to grow here. And it'll make for a nice tapping for maple syrup, but it doesn't actually as for diversity in a forest, there isn't a whole lot. There are not a lot of animals that live in a maple forest. The more transitional your forest is, the more animals, the more life you have in that forest. So I'm going to keep going. In fact, you can see up here, you can see all the green and everything. We're going back to a place that was more recently disturbed, so the trees are younger. It's a younger forest, so there aren't as many maples, and we have an understory. Well, first I was going to lean on this tree so I could show you what I was going to show you, but if you can see, we've got a hairy vine right here, and a whole mess of hairy vines going up this side. They're young and small, but we do have a hairy vine, which means no touching! That is poison ivy again. But coming around here, this is what I was going to show you here. These little red berries here belong to the barberry plant. This is Japanese barberry. Again, this is an invasive. We've got a crap load of it up here in this particular area. This is one of the areas I haven't cleaned out yet, but you can see there's a lot of these berries in here. The berries they make an excellent jelly. The berries are also very good as a blood builder. If you want to build up your red blood cells, this is a good way to do it. So if you've had surgery or a major injury, drinking tea made from barberry berries, it's very good. There's Puck. It's also, you can make a jelly, which is my favorite way of taking it, and there's a lot of recipes for barberry jelly, and I can put mine out too. I can actually make you some at some point, but and it's a good way, like I said, if you've had an injury, if you've had surgery, if you need to build up those red blood cells. I also use it as a winter tonic. You often hear spring tonics, but you don't hear winter tonics that often. And if you see, it's a frosty morning, and I'm walking around. Batteries went dead. I just have these kind of shoes for slipping on, and a lot of times I'll kick them off and walk barefoot. I don't have socks on, which can lead to have very cold feet. And these berries here help make a wonderful winter tonic to help build up your blood and make it so you have better circulation. I don't get frostbite. Obviously I would if I pushed it too much, but even though I'm walking through kicking up some frost onto my feet, I'm not too worried about it because I've never had a problem, and one of the reasons is because when it comes time to go to winter, I prepare my body through the intake of herbs and things like that, and when it comes time for spring, I prepare my body through the intake of herbs. That's just the way it is. And these make, like I said, makes a great jelly. You can use it for cooking jelly, so you can smear it on meats or things like that, or you can just smear it on your pasta or bread or something, and that's really good too. Or you can just make it as a tea. So that is barberry jelly. Dogs running through. There they are, checking things out. What you looking at? What you looking at? Barberry, though, has a much better use at this time of the year. After the leaves have died back, the barberry root can be dug up. It is nature's antibiotic. It's one of the best antibiotics out there. Barberry is equivalent, if not better, than golden seal, golden root, golden thread, Oregon grape. It has the same thing in it, berberine, and that berberine is an antibiotic, and it's nature's antibiotic. And one of the things about having a living antibiotic as opposed to a lab-created antibiotic is it's very hard for bacteria to become used to it, to find ways to fight it, because living things are constantly changing and growing. So the bacteria can't, when something is made in the lab, in fact it's forced. I work in labs, so I know this. When you work in a lab, you are forced to be able to do the same test over and over and over and over and get the same result. And that's what your antibiotics are supposed to be when you get it from a lab. You're supposed to just be able to go in, take the same amount of cephalexin that you took the day before, and it be the exact same, get the exact same result. That's how antibiotics work from a lab. With a living antibiotic, you have to experiment a little bit. You start on the low side, and then you take a little bit more and take a little bit more until you reach the point that it works for you. And because next year this plant may be going through a drought, or next year it may be going through a wet season, or it's a little colder next year, or a little hotter next year, it's going to develop its own different chemical makeup every year, every time of the year. So because it's changing, that means you have to work a little harder to make it work, because you have to find the right dosage for yourself. But it also means that the bacteria have that exact same problem. They can't develop an immunity to it because it's ever changing. So even if they develop an immunity to it this year, which would be very hard, but if they did, next year it's a totally different antibiotic. That's what a living antibiotic, that's the plus of a living antibiotic. The minus is it means we have to work a little harder. Most people don't like doing that. Barberry, either the berries for jelly, which you can just plain eat, or for building up your blood, blood tonic, winter tonic, and the roots, one of the best antibiotics out there. And the cool thing about it is, like Oregon grape and golden seal are becoming rarities because people are over harvesting them for their antibiotic properties. This is barberry. It's an invasive. We don't want it, so the more you harvest it, the better it actually is. Before I get too close to it here, I've got several of these pits on my farm, and they're dug up. You can see that there's a hole here, and then kind of on to the south side you can see a lot of different, you can see the pile of dirt. And these are what are called paint pits, and they are actually very old. These, I happen to live, Wisconsin happens to rest on the Niagara Escarpment, which is a very long shelf of rock that goes basically from almost the east coast of the North American continent through the Great Lake region to almost, I mean, it's almost exactly the border of Minnesota and the Dakotas. That's where it kind of ends. And the Niagara Escarpment has this wonderful stone that is known as pipestone, and it's a red stone that when it's first exposed to air becomes very soft and easily carved and kind of oily too. And then the longer it stays exposed to air, the harder it gets. So you have this small window of opportunity to carve the stone, and then it becomes rock hard and very hard to carve. And this is what peace pipes were made from. And the Niagara Escarpment is where the we like to think of American Indians as living in these little tribes and never talking to each other. They actually had quite extensive trade route, and the Niagara Escarpment is where these stones came from. And one of the side effects of the stones is as you're carving them, the red color that comes, the red dust that you carve off of them has this oily texture, and when mixed with tallow, it turns into paint. And so when you see, like in the movies, you see the warriors are painting themselves red or painting their horses red, you know, to go into battle, that came from here. That paint would have come from here. It's not like they went down to Hardware Hanks and bought themselves a thing of acrylic paint, or if they wanted to paint the horses, they wanted a water base, you know. They dug it up, and that stone, the powder of the carved, was used. And so these were known as paint pits around here, and I've got lots of them. And this one here is an interesting one because, and I got just a little walk, so you'll have to bear with me and walk with me. There's a trail down here that is it's an old military trail back during the Indian Wars, when we were out fighting the Indians in the late 1800s here in Wisconsin. And we had two roads. We had one that went northward, northwestward, and one that went northeastward. And then we had several of these connecting, and this is a connecting road between the two military, or a connecting trail between the two military trails. Let's see if I can get down to it here. Okay, we're on it now, and if you look, you can kind of see the wheel marks as they go up through there. And it's a very old trail. So you know, you can see the human travel on it for a very long time, and we had always known it as the military trail.